how do you sell people on the fact that even though, okay, I've never held this office before, I am qualified for it, or I can do a better job than the person there now?
Sure, I think I can make a great case that I was just as qualified as Kirsten Gillibrand was when she ran in '06. She had never held elected office before. Likewise, Scott Murphy, who's running as a Democrat, has never held elective office either. And if you look at the current Republican right now, I would think that being a long time entrenched politician is not something that's necessarily going to be of value to anybody as he kind of goes about his ways, you know. So my only caveat on all that would be is that perhaps nobody's qualified for this type of an elected office. But on the other hand, you know, I'm a member of this community. I've served it as a business person. People know me, and when we elect representatives, it's all about that fundamental trust and the fundamental relationship to the community. I think, you know, in terms of the intellectual requirements to be in an office like this, I certainly am as qualified as either of the other two candidates currently running, and I hopefully will look forward to debating them on many of these issues and many of these ideas that they don't obtain. I think I probably, had I had chosen to gone into one of the major parties, I very well could be an elected official right now, but instead I chose to go into the private sector, and then subsequently, as I've kind of transformed along in life here, you know, I find myself, my heart and my brain is in the world of libertarians, and I'm perfectly happy to run as a libertarian. I don't have to play any games. I can be honest. I can speak truth to power. If there's one thing we need right now in Washington is the ability to transgress all that stuff and speak truth to power. So on that level alone, I'm not a partisan hack, you know, and I think a lot of independents and coalitions of people will identify with that.
How do you explain to the average person why Republicans and Democrats, you know, like, maybe it's time to think of a third option?
I think it's even more insidious than that, because instead of just Republicans and Democrats, I think everybody finds themselves on the divide of conservative and liberal. And obviously, Republicans are associated with conservative, and liberals are associated with Democrat. One of the nice things about being a libertarian is that you can kind of bridge both worlds in terms of conservative and liberal. A lot of times you'll see people refer to libertarians as people who are basically fiscally conservative and socially liberal. Now, I think it goes a little bit deeper than that, and a lot of the ethos of what libertarians are all about, but it's a pretty solid thing politically when we go and look at these things, because people, I think, are naturally don't want to waste money, but they're pretty permissive when it comes to you know, personal issues that people should have every right to have or do on their own, as long as they're not, you know, basically harming anybody else.
I always try to you know, say more or less what you just said to people, and they're like, it's I don't know if it's a chicken and the egg thing, like people don't vote for third parties because people don't vote for third parties, or if it's just kind of a hegemony of like, well, these are the two options we have. Like, what can we do, and what do you do specifically to break that mentality?
Sure. I mean, aside from being a candidate for Congress right now, I'm also the chairman of the Libertarian Party of New York, and I frequently make the case for third parties. There's a couple ways to look at third parties. Third parties could be considered the parties that make a difference in terms of talking about issues that the other two parties won't talk about. The drug war is a great example of something like that. There's a lot of other issues that, you know, major party people won't talk about. Unfortunately, what I always say too is that because of James Madison's inherent and suspicion of factions, you know, specifically English factions in parliaments, they developed this system of winner-take-all districts that subsequently kind of created this two-party system, if you will. It's not a two-party system per se. It's obviously, you can have a two-party, more than two parties, but the problem is that in order to win a specific district, you have to get all of the votes. And what that tends to do is it creates two very strong parties who diametrically oppose each other, more so in power than sometimes philosophy. So what I like to tell people is that, third party is not a waste of your vote, because, half the people in this country don't even vote. And so any third party candidate who obtains or accrues any amounts of votes, those are well-earned votes. You could easily make the case that when you look at the two major parties, a lot of people engage in what they call strategic voting. And when they do strategic voting, what that means is that they're voting for the lesser of two evils. And so when you have the lesser of two evils, is it any better when it's, still two evils? And so, voting conscience and voting along those lines is certainly something that we all need to consider. And, that's kind of my short case for the third parties, but that's what I like to generally tell and relate to people.